It was. All right, all right, we'll go ahead and get started. We're watching a little bit longer of a clip today than we have been, about 10 minutes instead of a 3-minute clip. So I want to go ahead and make sure we get it started. Today we're talking about those gossiping men. So we're talking about gossip tonight. I'll go ahead and get in there and start the clip, and then we'll watch it, and then we'll talk. All right, so tonight, again, we are talking about gossip. Starting out, Romans chapter 1, verses 29 through 32 makes it pretty clear, talking about the seriousness of gossip. It mentions it along with murderers and haters of God, and those that practice such things will die. But gossip isn't just hard to resist, it's also hard to define. We don't always know when we're gossiping. Sometimes it just kind of slips into our conversations. So what exactly makes gossip gossip? So what I found, the Hebrew word translated gossip in the Old Testament is defined as one who reveals secrets or one who goes about as a talebearer and starting scandals. A gossiper is someone who has privileged information about people and reveals that information when they so choose. Gossip is distinguished from sharing information in two ways. So sharing information and gossip. Two things that make gossip gossip. Number one is the intent. Gossipers often have the goal of building themselves up while making others look bad and exalting themselves as some kind of keeper of secret knowledge. The second part is the type of information being shared. Gossipers speak of the faults and failings of others or reveal potential embarrassing or shameful details regarding the lives of others without their knowledge or approval. And sometimes they don't even mean any harm by it. It just kind of happens. So I want to get some ideas from you guys. What is some of your definition of what gossip is? I think it comes in different forms. We had the lighthearted gossip here by Aunt B, and then we got where she tricks Andy into making up this funny story. And then we had the gossip that was taking place in the store at the beginning, the drugstore. That was more of your hurtful type gossip. What do you guys think? How do you define gossip?
Well, it's a teller of tales that are not necessarily true. They're only suspected to be by the one telling the news, by the one telling the news.
Sometimes gossip can be 100% true.
It could be true. And there have been, but mainly this has been pure speculation on so many people's parts.
Right. Well, in the episode,
you don't know in the episode.
Right. In the episode, it's definitely speculation.
Okay.
But in real life, not just in the episode, oftentimes gossip is true.
So gossip then can be malicious. It can be purveyed in a manner that the facts may be true, but the way it's purveyed may make it seem worse than that, as far as that goes. The intent of the gossiper has a lot to do with how that information is revealed. And it's busybody stuff. My definition of gossip is just busybody stuff. It's a whole bunch to do about nothing.
Okay. And I really wish Pam was here. I was hoping our school counselor was going to be here, because if there's anything a school counselor spends time on, it's gossip. I went through this episode not too long ago. Well, not this episode, but another episode dealing with gossip. And every other Friday I do Andy episodes with my kids at school. And there was an episode about gossip, and I asked them, what percentage of school fights do you think start from gossip? They're like 99.9%. So gossip definitely comes in different ways. Anybody got any other definition of gossip they think about? All right. Well, then the next part I want to talk about on your outline, the one that some of you print out before you even come, I added a word here. But on part B there, I was wondering, what do you guys think about, and this is question number 2, kind of, but gossip versus slander versus just talking, just having a conversation. Slander is the one, like Robert was saying, it's not true. You just make it up, you're doing it to hurt somebody. Gossip, in some cases, can be true. Slander can be gossip. Gossip can also be slander. But when they're mentioned in the Bible, they're mentioned, both of them are mentioned. An example would be, where is it? 2 Corinthians 12:20. It just is going through stuff. It says quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, gossip, conceit, and disorder. So there is a separation between slander and gossip. But what do you guys think? Question number 2 there. Where do we draw the line between talking and gossiping? Sometimes just sitting there having a conversation. Every time we go home, I sit down with my grandmother and we talk about everything going on in the town, you know. And then at certain points in the conversation, she'll go, oh, well, now I'm just gossiping. I don't want to do that. But where do you guys draw the line between just having a conversation and gossip? Where does it go from talking to gossip? Where do you draw the line?
Intent.
Intent, definitely.
Well, when somebody talks about something and it can't be corroborated,
Okay.
it's like, you know, it's weird, especially in my line of work, it's people will say they love to share what they think is information that they know that nobody else knows.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else at work or anything like that deal with, well, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but where do you draw the line between just talking and, is it easy to slip into gossip?
Sure.
Do you guys agree with that one? I think it definitely can be. And once you get into the gossiping, it's hard to slip out of it.
Well, and that's when a Christian needs to be able to say, well, I don't need to be any part of this conversation.
Right, right.
I deal with gossip at work.
Okay.
You know, and I think that's something that it's interesting how one thing flows from one side of the church to the other at times. And sometimes it's just labeled around just having a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but if you're having a conversation about someone that is negative, well, now you cross into that area of gossip. You know, you can be talking about, like Haskell's dad passed away. We should be praying for Haskell. You can have a conversation like that, rather than something that can be negative. You know, but so many times it's labeled as, well, you know, we were just talking about a concern, and that's what it turns into.
Mm-hmm.
We had a conversation, I think it was about a year ago now, when Mark was still an elder. And that was one of the things, that's one of the things the church is real good at doing with our elders, is, well, hey, I want to talk to you about this, and they'll talk about somebody. And that's not right. Elder or not, it's not right. The Bible says if you got something to say about someone, go talk to them. But we justify it by saying, well, I'm talking to the elder, or I'm talking to preacher. And we cut that off, I think it's about a year and a half ago, with the statement from the pulpit was, if you're going to come talk to us about somebody, be prepared to be asked if you've already talked to that person about this issue. And if not, then we are going to go talk to that person, let them know you have a concern about them. And we're going to have an expectation that you two talk within about a week's time. If that doesn't occur, then we're going to sit down with both of you. And once that announcement was made, you'd be amazed how fast talk finally stopped. But we find all kinds of ways to figure out to make it not gossip when it actually is.
All right. How about biblical examples of gossip? Can anybody think of a Bible story that involved gossip and how it turned out? Question number 3. The one I can think of, going back to the Old Testament, would be Absalom. All right, so Absalom had this whole thing go on with his stepsister, stepbrother. Gets sent away, 2 years, comes back. His dad won't see him. And that's when the gossip starts. Because gossip can be a weapon. I think we can all agree on that. Definitely, you see it at work all the time. You can see it other places. And Absalom used gossip as a weapon. He got all these other people together. He said, he's just talking. They're just talking like we talked about. But it's the ideas that start spreading. And really, Absalom and other people that gossip, they use it as a way to say, hey, I trust you enough that I'm going to give you this information. And you get people that like to gossip together, and they all think they all have this common trust where they get together and talk. And he built relationships around using that gossip. And then ultimately it backfires on the poor guy. He gets, the whole Harry situation. But But, which was one of my favorite stories as a kid. I don't know why some guy getting his hair caught up in a tree I like. But does anybody else have any examples of gossip in the Bible? Perhaps the Pharisees, the Sadducees, any of those people? Can anybody think of a time when gossip played a part in a story? Robert, I see you trying hard on that one.
I am, I really am.
Would it be when, was it the Pharisees that accused Jesus of healing on the Sabbath? I mean, they not only were accusing him, but they wanted to spread it around to the large group of Pharisees.
I definitely think the Pharisees had a whole network of gossiping going on around Jesus, I'm sure.
But he did heal on the Sabbath.
Right, but
Yeah.
gossip can be true.
Yeah.
Gossip can be true, it's just the intent for which it's
Right,
used.
sure. Okay, I got you.
Anybody else think of any other gossip stories? I'm sure we could if we really sat down and looked at them. We don't often look at them from that perspective, though.
Right.
Because we don't, feel free to agree with me or disagree, I don't think we view gossip as being as bad as it actually is. I mean, it's one of the most divisive things that,
Absolutely.
weapons that the devil has in his toolbox. All right. Robert, when you think of one, feel free to jump in.
Okay, I'll do that.
I saw things moving in your head.
But, it's just difficult for me to, and I know it's true, but I never I hardly ever considered gossip to be something of truth, because if it's gossip, it seems to have a negative intent all the way. That's my perspective as I think about gossip.
Slander.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, that's what you're thinking about. You're thinking about slander, which can also be gossip.
Right,
It can be used as gossip.
and that's my narrow view, which shouldn't be. I'm not saying that I'm right in only that view. I'm just saying that it's just difficult for me to come up with an example in the Bible as I think about it, as I look about it. And of course, Kay just brought one up, and first thing I said, well, hey, that's true. But
Right.
there's gossip can be, just like you said, can be truth, but it's according to how that truth is presented. He could have been joyful about healing on the Sabbath, and that would have been something different. But he was not joyful about the purveyor of the gossip itself, of the fact itself, of the truth itself, was put in a negative way. He shouldn't be doing that. He shouldn't be doing that's work. That's considered work on the Sabbath, and that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm done talking.
I think the person who spreads gossip many times is waiting for an opportunity to share something that only they know about within a group or with another individual. And so a common thing is, did you know? That's how it can start out. Or have you heard? Or, do you know what happened? And then it goes on from there, because the other person is anxious to hear and know.
Right. So in today's culture, we have this talk show society that we live in. We got shows like, I have not watched The View, but I know it exists. The View is kind of a gossip. I was telling the kids, there's a whole channel, right, TMZ or whatever. I don't know if it's a whole channel, but there's a whole news show that's just gossip. Half of our news programs anyhow are gossip. ESPN, I go at ESPN pretty often throughout the day when the kids are typing. Half the news stories on there are just gossip that somebody heard from somebody else. You go to MSNBC, half the stories are gossip. Even if they're true, why do we know so much about celebrities' lives? Because there's this gossip, and everybody enjoys. Why do we enjoy gossip? Kay was just talking about, why do people like hearing what's going on? People like telling people because they've got this information that nobody knows, but why do people like hearing it so much? Is it just the entertainment value? Is there more to it? Why is gossiping something so hard to stop for people? Not in here. No one in here would ever gossip. So, what is so enticing about gossip?
I think Kay probably, as far as I can see, my limited view, is about having a certain knowledge that that others don't have, and you're the purveyor of it. In other words, you're one, because now you've presented yourself as being very special because you're the only one that has that information that you're giving. So you're kind of putting yourself up as one who has, has got his ear to the track, if you will. And I know certain things, and I'm just going to let you know about this because I know, because I'm in the know.
How many of you, when you worked, or if you still work, knew where you could go to get gossip at your place of business? Do you know who you could go see? We got this
You
whole,
don't have to go anywhere, it'll find you.
it'll find you. Yeah.
And as it goes from person A to B, it grows. You can get a circle of 10 people right here. You tell the person next to you something, and by the time it comes back to you, it morphs into a totally different story.
I know at my school, I can go to the workroom and there'll be at least 2 or 3 people in there at all times that want to tell me everything that's going on in the whole school. But I think we all know where we could go if we want to know something about somebody. There's always a clique that is their thing.
I'm just sorry, I don't have time for that.
Right. So talking about not having time for that, setting an example. I was talking to my kids in class about gossip, and I said, how many of y'all know what it means when one teacher comes into another teacher's classroom and does this? They're all like, oh, they're gossiping, they're talking about something. I said, I bet you all know teachers, you can tell me teachers right now that do that all the time in class. And they start naming names. I'm like, whoa, we're not doing that. They started naming names. I said, well, I hope I'm not one of those people because I try to avoid doing that. But setting an example, question number 5, we should be an example of someone who does not gossip because we shouldn't be doing it. How can we avoid gossiping, and how valuable is that example to others? How do you avoid gossiping? When gossip comes to you, what do you do?
I try to shut it down. I said, do you know these things for fact, or because I don't hear it very often, but what I would try to do if I did, someone was trying to do that, I said, have you gone to that person to find out if this is true, whatever the case may be. But gossip is just a waste of time for me. It's a total waste of time.
And in my work, it can waste hours of your time. You
Yeah.
see people gossiping nonstop, kids and adults. And I hate that the adults see that. I hate that they know what the paper up in front of their face means, But I think when you work at a school, and like when I asked them, do you guys know what this means, and do you know people that do it? And they were all like, oh yeah. I'm like, that is sad. A bunch of 6th graders in this school see this example of gossiping all the time. And they don't see the alternative, They don't see what it looks like not to gossip even. All right, anybody else on how do you set an example to avoid, saying an example for people to see?
I want to say something.
Oh, yes, Nancy, sorry.
I don't know if it could turn into gossip, but what I've learned is trying to live a Christian life. So my friend, her husband gets hurt really bad, and she shares a lot of things with me. Well, I learned not to share that with anybody. Now, I might ask us to pray for them or something, but I don't repeat what she told me to any of our other friends in that group, because if she wanted to tell them, she could, but I just would keep it between us. But I just learned that from trying to live a Christian life, or living the Christian life.
And that comes back to trust, right?
Yeah.
When you give information to somebody, you trust them not to be somebody that's going to spread that around. And when you know that person, the person that you can't trust, we don't share information with that person, right? So that's another reason not to be that person that gossips, because people won't trust you. And as Christians, we need people to, trust should be something that we seek to seek to have.
I think there's a difference between reporting and gossip.
And that's going back to way back at the very top, conversations and gossip, yes. But let's go into it, Kate, tell me about that.
I'm just thinking, our children need to know that there are things that need to be reported.
Right,
you
correct,
know,
yes.
Either to a parent or an adult or a teacher or whatever, you know. So I guess as an adult, we really have to be discerning on what is actually reporting to keep someone safe or to help them to not be harmed, whether emotionally or whatever. And the difference between it, reporting and gossiping, I guess.
Okay,
It's hard. It's hard for even us as adults.
all right. Yeah. I'll get right to you, but I feel like we're going to go with Danny on that one. Is there any difference if a member of the church reports something to you instead of gossiping? The example I can think of would not actually happen from an elder in the church. A friend of mine went to a church where one of the elders, he started getting Alzheimer's, and suddenly decided to start confessing that he'd been molesting his kids and his grandkids and all that. That had to be reported to the other elders. You know, that's not necessarily gossiping. So, Danny, what would you think about that? A difference between reporting and gossiping?
Well, there's some things that you need, that you should have conscience enough to do and do the hard thing if it does present itself to you. It's like, okay, you know, and once you figure out and realize it's not a joke or it's not anything malicious, then you have an obligation.
Raymond, I wasn't blanking totally on anybody's name or anything. Raymond, you had something to say? Or is it a last?
No, I think it's, you know, I want to give an example of what Kate was talking about. You know, if there's a sin taking place, then it needs to be addressed with that individual. Now, if it's a crime, then that doesn't alleviate you from talking to that individual, but it also doesn't alleviate you from reporting it to whoever needs to know about it, okay? So I think we should be clear about that. Nothing alleviates us from our responsibility of talking to each other as Christians, period. I think where the difference, not the difference, but in reporting something that's not a crime, you know, that could be something as simple as Kay and I were having a conversation about how to best help a family here, you know, health-wise. How, it wasn't gossiping about them, it wasn't talking anything negative, it was really, are you aware of this? And I was not. It's like, okay. And so we talked and we had to figure out, you know, what can we do as members of the body that is best to try and help them. Because I was at a loss until she called and said, hey, maybe we should do this. It's like, okay, that's great. Because I had already exhausted what I thought I can do. But that kind of conversation is good. You know, reporting to one another, hey, how can we help these individuals? How can we do this? How can we do that? And those things are appropriate. I think we really need to be aware of when there's a sin, when there's a wrong, and obviously when there's a crime that can be tied up in that. You know, those things need to be addressed still with the individual, and then whatever else needs to follow it. The Bible tells us again and again to have these conversations with each other. And that eliminates so much gossip that is out there. You know, it just flies out the window. Like an incident I was telling you, talking about the elders and I, we had this conversation. So it actually came up. So we actually met with an individual, said, okay, we're going to let this person know. And guess what happened? They resolved it without us. You know, and all it was a misunderstanding over words. That's all it was. But they would have known that, and it would have escalated if we didn't say, go back and talk to this person. And by the way, we're going to tell this person you brought this up. And it wasn't, oh, hey, they're talking about you. It was, hey, look, this person brought up a concern, but it has to do with you. We're not going to step into it until you two have had a chance to discuss it. So this is all we know. This is all I know. And they resolved it within less than a week. They got on the phone with each other, they met each other, they talked about it, they laughed about it, and they moved forward. They didn't need our involvement. They just needed a reminder to go talk to your brother. That's all.
All right. So setting an example, we need to set a good example. We need to remember, I think the biggest thing we need to remember is the intent of the conversation, right? Your intention makes up 99% of whether or not it is gossip, or if it's communication, I think. Moving on to core values there. So the point is here, the point I want to make is gossip doesn't need to be part of our core values. As a Christian, our core values lay in an area that's separate from that gossip because of the intent. As Christians, our intention should be to be loving one another, right?
Right.
So we need to be Christ-centric in our thinking and our talking and what we do and the information that we share. Number 6, what are some of our core values in Christians, and how do these values conflict with gossiping? So as Christians, what are some of our core values? Kindness. We're just going to start naming fruits of the Spirit now, and that's okay.
Compassion. Just to say, the intent of the gossip. The intent of the relaying of information.
Mm-hmm.
If the intent of relaying information is motivated by love,
Correct.
by great love, compassion, caring, okay, and wanting to see certain things resolved and not wanting to injure the party about whom you're talking, then I think it's a good idea that that person then go to the individual first and foremost. As was stated earlier, why don't you talk with your brother before you bring any information to me? Or any information to an elder, or any information to a deacon or a preacher or whatever. Try to resolve it one-on-one with your brother. And if it's with a sister, you do it with your wife when you go and talk with that individual. You know what I'm saying? Your wife or whomever. You know what I'm trying to say.
I got you. Yeah.
Okay. So it's getting back to the intent. If the intent is loving, wanting to resolve what is perceived as a problem or an issue, then it's okay to go to that person and talk with that person. Now, does that mean that if an individual has not everybody can talk with anybody, unfortunately. We ought to be able to have enough confidence, enough compassion, enough love with one another that we can go to one another and we can talk. But sometimes some individuals can be shy enough to say, well, I don't think I'm going to be able to talk with this individual. Then there lies the issue. Then that individual probably needs to go to a friend in the congregation and say, I really want to talk with this person, but I need you to be there as a witness. Okay, something to that effect. In other words, if the problem is there, if the problem is, then if it's perceived or if it's real or perceived, then it needs to be taken care of, or you need to forget about it. You just need to pass it off. But if it's something that's worth you believing it needs to be resolved or needs to be talked about, then absolutely. But the intent has got to be love and restoration.
Okay. So love
and reconciliation, restoration.
Okay. And we got kindness. What are some more of our core values as Christians? I feel like we should really have a pretty firm grasp on this.
Encouragement to each other, and how can we encourage each other if we're tearing someone down?
Encouraging. Okay. And then just all your fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience. Those are our core values right there. Love being the chorus. I don't know if that's a word, but love being the chorus.
Most core.
Most core. Most core. If we were going to bring it down to one word, it's coming down to love every time, right? Because it when love's done right, it encompasses the rest of the fruits of the Spirit. Right? So next thing I wanted you to think about was a paradigm shift. So people that gossip, they do it, again, with that intent. Like I said earlier, the goal of building themselves up or making others look bad or just making themselves feel good because they have this information. But we need to have a paradigm shift if we're going to not be doing that sort of thing. And our paradigm shift comes in Ephesians Chapter 4, verses 29. I guess Ephesians 4:29, if you want to write on next to it. It says, "Let no corrupt talking come out of your mouths, but only such is good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear it." That's our shift. That's, as Christians, that's the way we need to talk. That's the way we need to be interacting with one another. And I think because if we have that paradigm shift, I think we're going to build a stronger bond between us and those that are around us. The gossipers, they always get together. The ones that always stand in the corner and whisper, they feel like they have their own special bond. But our bond as Christians, when we have this paradigm shift and think about giving grace to those who hear it, that gives us a stronger bond. So I want, real quick, number 7, before we get done here. By shifting our paradigm away from gossiping, how do you guys think we'll see our bond with our Christian and brothers and others, even those that aren't Christians? How do you think we'll see that bond improve with each other?
Well, it should improve,
By trust.
but in the same breath, whether people want to admit it or not, a lot of majority of people are thin-skinned and get defensive when you bring something up to them.
I'm talking out of school.
What does that mean, Jim? Not talk out of school?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have that one explained to me.
No, I get that, I know exactly what you mean, you know? You don't talk out of school. I mean, I've heard that term. It's, and I think that goes back to what you said, what are the qualities that we should be having as Christians and growing in? If we're growing in those qualities, then I can deal with the conversation if you come up to me and say, hey, look, you know, I got this to talk about with you. If I have a sincere belief that I think you want what's best for me, then, and that because I believe that, I don't think you're saying this in a negative way or be hurtful or anything like that, then I can hear you and I can listen. But regardless of all that, I should still be able to listen and hear what you have to say and weigh it as truth or not and go from there. Sometimes, you know, I agree with my dad. We can be very sensitive where someone just wants to talk to us and all of a sudden now I'm super offended just because someone wanted to point something out to me. And then you don't even know about it. You don't even know about it for, man, months. Until finally it just pops up, you know. If we can work on looking at preferring one another in love, if I can look at everyone and say, you know what, I really believe you want the best for me, and you believe I want the best for you, then we can start having good conversations with each other. You know, I've had conversations with brothers in Christ where they were hard to have, very hard to have. And they're probably the people I'm closest to now. Because they at least had the love and concern to say, hey, can we talk about this? And we got to clear up whatever needed to be cleared up because we talked. So we can build stronger relationships just by doing that.
And nowadays, society in general wants to pound it into people. You can't say this to person A because, well, I'm offended by that, regardless of what it is. You know, it's something as simple, we got the holidays coming up. You say, you go pay for something at Target or wherever, and you tell the clerk, out of, you know, courtesy, hey, Merry Christmas to you. Oh, I don't want to say that because it might offend them. Well, you know what? You shouldn't be so thin-skinned, you know? So people are hesitant to speak up, whether it is in love or not, because they don't want to offend that person. And unfortunately, that's what happens a lot.
Well, is it not in love when you wish somebody a Merry Christmas?
Yeah, but look what's being pounded into.
Well,
Now they want you to say Happy Holidays.
Yeah, I
It's not Happy
understand.
Holidays, it's
And
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and I understand that, but when you wish somebody a good day, when you wish somebody have a good holiday season, a good Christmas season. It's all meant out of love. And if they reject that, then they reject it for the wrong reason.
Well, can it be said not out of love? Can you go up to somebody you know is Jewish and say Merry Christmas on purpose? Could somebody, I'm not saying you, Robert.
Yeah.
Could somebody say that and not be doing it out of love?
They can do that. Yeah.
And it's something as simple too, as going to eating out somewhere, and, our deal is to say grace before we eat the meal. And I've been around some people, church people, who won't do it because, well, these people over here might hear me and I don't want to offend them. Well, you know what, I'm sorry, the heck with them.
Yeah, well,
But that's where it's getting to.
I've never once had somebody say anything negative to me when they heard my family pray to me.
I haven't even.
Yeah.
I have.
Well, it's because you're from California. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad you moved.
I'm glad you moved, yeah.
Are you glad you moved out of California?
Hey, who says it happened in California?
Oh, we can assume. All right.
Starting gossip here.
All right, we can try. We got a few minutes. All right, we got any announcements that need to be made about upcoming Sunday or anything else that needs to be announced? Yes?
Thursday at 11:30.
Thursday at 11:30. Tomorrow is the seniors' lunch. Okay.
I need to make an announcement about that. I don't know whether Raymond is going to say anything about it. I don't know whether even Raymond knows, but Effie is not going to be there.
Oh,
Okay.
dear. Really?
Yeah, because she's I think.
She had one of her best friends' husband is getting close to passing.
Right.
And love it.
There you go. Bring it on, brother.
So she wants to be there for them, for her, and so she left, but she did get a hold of Levon, and Levon volunteered to step in and make sure that it goes forward.
Yay.
So nothing's
Right
canceled.
on.
So again, that's the senior luncheon tomorrow at 11.
11:30.
11:30. Okay. Thanks a lot.
That's because of
I
the
knew you were gonna help me out.
5 o'clock.
Jesus loves you.
Jesus loves us. Good job.
Good job.
All right, any other announcements that need to be made?
It's Potluck Sunday.
Potluck Sunday on Sunday?
Casual Sunday.
And Potluck Sunday falls on Casual Sunday, just in case people keep forgetting that memo.
All right.
But
Any
will you
other?
throw us out if we dress up?
Huh?
Will you throw us out if we do dress
No,
up?
you're more than welcome to.
All right, is there any other announcements? Is there anybody we need to pray for?
Yeah, for those that know Rocky in Maryland that had to move because of health reasons, Rocky called me a couple hours before class. He's developed some kind of a growth on his right lung,
Oh, no.
so which is affecting his breathing. And then Marilyn is still having issues with her heart because of a valve replacement. So they're both in little dire straits.
Okay. Oksana's mom's fine. We finally heard from her yesterday. She had a hysterectomy, I think. Roughly.
Now, you're sure that was confirmed?
We're not sure what all parts were taken out, but we know some things were. It was done in the People's Republic of Donetsk, so we're just glad she's alive, no matter what they did to her. Yeah. Anybody else got anything? Know of anybody? All right, if not, Danny, could you lead us in prayer? We'll be dismissed.
Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for the opportunity and privilege that we've had to study a portion of your word, that we can grow from it, apply it, and be better Christian people. We pray for those that were mentioned a little while ago. Oksana's mom, Rocky and Marilyn, Effie, and the issues that are going on with them. We ask that you put your comforting hand over them, a healing hand over them as well. Be with us as we each go our own way. And we thank you for your son. In his name we pray, amen.
Never heard